We live within structures that exert a constant, often invisible pressure on the individual. These systems dictate behavior and allocate power, exacting a toll that few completely escape. The scholar Bell Hooks articulated a precise baseline for understanding this dynamic. Feminism is for everybody. The patriarchy harms every person on Earth, even as it disproportionately exploits specific populations. Grasping the actual scale of this movement requires passing over commercialized slogans. It requires an engagement with the rigorous theoretical texts authored by the women who lived and mapped these frameworks. We are going to construct a syllabus of essential feminist literature. Using these authors, we will build a structural model of intersectional feminism from the ground up. This education serves as a practical blueprint, showing how intensely personal, private experiences scale up to form macro-systemic critiques. Historically, female experiences are categorized as disparate women's issues, isolated domestic or bodily complaints, rather than components of a cohesive political system. We can analyze our syllabus using a new structural model. This diagram organizes texts into 3 concentric circles, expanding outward. At the center is the embodied self. This is the bedrock of feminist theory, grounded in the physical realities of the body. The second ring represents relational praxis, the space where the individual connects to others through community care, maternal labor, and generational ties. Finally, the outermost circle is systemic intersectionality. This encompasses state policy, economic structures, and racial dynamics. This model suggests that the structural change in the outer ring is anchored in the reclamation of the micro-level realities at the center. Patriarchal systems consistently code natural female biology as chaotic, shameful, or inherently hysterical. In her 1970s poetry collection, Diving into the Wreck, Adrienne Rich examines how language weaponizes this biology. She writes directly to this dynamic. You worship the blood, you call it hysterical bleeding, you want to drink it like milk. Modern essayists like Samantha Irby and Chloe Caldwell write direct countermeasures to this biological shaming. In The Red Zone, Caldwell analyzes premenstrual dysphoric disorder not as a defect to be hidden, but as a lens to examine relationships, stepmotherhood, and queerness. Irby's work functions similarly, using the display of bodily appetites and hormonal realities as a direct rejection of the demand for a neat, cooperative female body. By centering these unruly physical experiences, we establish the reclaimed body as a foundational site of political identity. Control extends from physical biology to psychological interiority, specifically through the systemic prohibition of female anger. In Minor Feelings, Kathy Park Hong dissects how Asian American women are denied the public entitlement to anger. The culture demands compliance, often forcing that frustration inward. When this suppressed anger is directed outward, it is sublimated into destabilizing, powerful art. Audre Lorde provided a theoretical framework to resist a culture that demands bodily disconnection. Lorde argued that the traits women are taught to distrust, the feeling of being too sensitive or too emotional, actually constitute a deep, non-rational knowledge base. Trusting this internal emotional knowledge threatens a patriarchal system that relies on women doubting their own realities. Reclaiming the individual body and mind allows the focus to shift to the second ring of our model, relational praxis. Drawing on Bell Hooks' All About Love, the act of self-love for Black women living under systemic racism functions as a revolutionary political act. Untangling generational trauma is a prerequisite for building communities rooted in healthy, structural love rather than cyclical oppression. Feminist world-building relies on the accumulated weight of daily, often invisible labor. Author Sonora Jha illustrates this by framing the maternal labor of raising a feminist son as a central act of social change. Feminism is a collaborative architecture sustained by the daily labor of care. This localized care bridges directly to the outermost ring of the model, the state and macroeconomics. Mainstream 1960s feminism preached personal growth and empowerment through corporate work outside the home. This corporate model relied on a specific economic trade-off, outsourcing domestic labor to women of color at poverty wages. Contrast that with the platform developed by Johnnie Tillmon and the National Welfare Rights Organization. In 1972, Tillmon argued that a guaranteed adequate income for all women was required to attack the root of capitalist patriarchy. Zora Neale Hurston's literature cements the fact that gender-based discrimination is inextricably bound to racial discrimination and colorism. True liberation remains impossible within a capitalist framework that inherently relies on the exploitation of marginalized women to function. Look at the completed model. The physical body, emotional care, and the welfare state operate as a single continuous system. The female experience is a complex spectrum of overlapping systemic realities. This is articulated by Kimberlé Crenshaw's concept of intersectionality, which maps how race, class, and orientation aggravate oppression within this architecture. Understanding these structures is the first step. Systemic liberation requires integrating the personal interiority of the body with uncompromising structural action.